Thank you for joining me for what I'm more or less calling my story/spoiler run through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is your warning that from this point forward, this video and all of the videos in this series are full of spoilers and speculation for the complete story in Rebirth, so everything we're given in-game. It will be looking at ideas and elements from Remake, as well as the original Final Fantasy VII, start to finish, so including beyond where we are in the story, the whole story start to finish of OG7. It will be incorporating ideas and plot elements from the books, On the Way to a Smile, The Kids Are All Right, Tale of Two Pasts. It will probably come up once or twice discussing Advent Children, the movie, and I will give you fair warning, it is such a convoluted story, and going back through it for how many times I've watched other people play, I've watched my play, I've recorded these videos. As many times as I've gone through it, there's always new ideas and thoughts that I have while doing stuff, so you'll see little interruptions occasionally throughout the video, like this! And those are just, during the editing process, something I forgot to mention. I came in and thought of it, and so added it in after fact. So, if those are annoying, sorry, but it is what it is. So, I want these to generate discussion. I want to hear your thoughts, so please join me in the comments. Tell me things that maybe I missed. If you see something you missed, let me know. If you think I'm wrong about something, please. If you think I'm going off into crazy town. If you think I'm on the right track, great. Let's talk about it. Maybe discussion will raise some more ideas. Anyway, without further ado, thank you for joining me. I love this game. Hopefully you do too, so let's get into it. Alright, about to start heading up on the hiking trail here. Nothing terribly story related at this point, but...
So we've got to walk?
You'll be fine. Fresh air, nice view.
The view ain't all that. Not unless you enjoy staring at ruined reactors.
Right. You grew up around here, didn't you?
Let's get a move on.
Yeah, he's up on the positive attitude there,
Hey,
Tief.
Materia's like super
Read the Barret.
or something, right?
So?
So, that means wherever we find Mako, we'll find Materia too. All right, timeout's over, team. Let's go.
You know, Yuffie, when you're part of a team, you can't just do...
I think there's more conversation with Yuffie about Materia when we get to the reactor, but as long as we're walking for a second here, I will say that I've mentioned it. I don't know if it's been in this commentary before. I know I mentioned it in at least one other commentary through this game, at least one other point rather, that Yuffie's understanding of Materia, and I don't know if it's indicative of Wu Tai's understanding of Materia, because Yuffie is still a teenager and immature, etc. But Yuffie's understanding of Materia is juvenile, incomplete, it's severely lacking. I mean, there's all sorts of words I can use to describe it. It's... If you think about when we came across the crystallized Mako in the prologue with Sephiroth and Cloud Zack. And he said, "Oh, so what is magic? And so, you know, and how do we get magic out of Materia? And blah blah blah." Which was, you know, an innocent enough question. Didn't demonstrated a lack of understanding. And Sephiroth laughed and said, "Well, I know someone who would hate to hear it be called magic." And from that perspective, Hojo and Shinra, by extension, view Materia as science. These are skills and things that you can pull from the memories that have been crystallized from the past, from the live stream, the Mako, etc. There's a scientific explanation for it, not magic, even though it's magic. And then you combine that with, who is the quote? The sufficiently advanced technology seems like magic. To Yuffie, and possibly Wu Tai in general, but to Yuffie at least, it's magic. It's this inexplicable thing. You don't understand it, but you hold this glowing ball and things happen. And it's just a fundamental misunderstanding or a lack of understanding of how materia works and how to apply it. And it's also, which also it reads across as a misapplication and misunderstanding of power that Shinra definitely understands. They have the materia, they have the technological advantage, they used it to eventually beat Wutai. I mean, the war with Wutai was several years. And they kept experimenting with the science of materia and built materia fusion that we saw in Crisis Core that I really want to see in Part 3. I mean, they were really all invested in the technology of materia and Mako and using this. And Wutai was, ooh, look at the special effects and the damage that it can wreak. Yuffie's understanding is the bigger the materia, the better the materia, the more powerful you are, therefore you win. And I was just listening to somebody who's playing the DLC on Remake for the first time today, and they got to her explanation where the woman from Avalanche was, so what are you going to do with the materia, with this ultimate materia once you get it? And Yuffie's response was, well, whoever has the materia wins. I mean, the bigger materia means it's stronger, and therefore this ultimate thing must be super strong. So once we have it, we'll have all the power, therefore we win, right? That's the way it works. Was more or less her response. I mean, it's not a direct quote, but it's pretty damn close. And I mean, here she is. She's like, oh, so there's materia. Ooh, that means there's Mako. There'll be materia. Therefore, I can get materia, and I can get powerful, and woo, woo, woo. And it really goes back to her lack of understanding about materia and Mako in general, and also how it really is used in war and technology. And if her understanding and views about it are indicative of how Wutai views it, you kind of get a sense for why Wutai lost the war, really. Shinra just had the technological advantage and used it. I mean, they made soldiers. They made mechs that are Mako powered. They did materia fusion to build bigger, better, faster, more powerful materia. They kicked Wutai's butt, really. Wutai was probably the better soldiers pound for pound. They have ninjas, for frick's sake. But Shinra even used technology to make better soldiers. You can only have so many Zacks out there and Sephiroths out there, but Zack and Sephiroth by themselves can't win the entire war. Maybe Sephiroth. Maybe Zack. But anyway, you get the point. So, alright, I will meet you at the next important stop here, but yeah, it's just anytime Yuffie starts talking about materia, that it always just makes me reflect on that and how immature she is. And again, she's a kid. She's younger than everybody else out here. But even relatively speaking, I think she's at best Red's age, his relative age of what, 16-ish? Something like that, I forget. But, I mean, she is the youngest person out there, and it shows.
You still holding up okay?
Yeah, feeling great, actually. Could do this all day. It's like someone's pulling me up.
You've become one with the mountain. Say what?
I'm including this because Aerith is adorable.
I did? Hey! Thanks for having me!
The hell are you doing, Red? Relax. It happens to all new climbers. If she passes out, I'll carry her.
Let's go!
I love that part. Okay, here we go for the mech fight in a second here.
Come
but
on,
first,
out you go.
again, Shinra clearly not having a problem getting their hands on these black robe guys. The hardest part is probably trying to herd cats, and it's like, all right, no, in helicopter, in the helicopter, get in there, get in there.
Look who it is.
Although I don't doubt the Turks feel no problems with just picking them up and shoving them in.
You here to pick a fight?
What? Oh, no. Just dropping off some unruly passengers. They were fine when we left Junon, and then they weren't. So, here we are. Don't know why. One minute they were okay, and the next...
I like the expanded role they gave Elena. They gave her a bit more face time in this than an OG.
This is way above my pay grade.
So, That's it? Well, since you're here...
I also like that Rue's just like, whatever you do, I'll back your play, go for it. You wanna fight? You fight. I'm here in the helicopter.
We'd love to stay and chat, but Brood and I are busy people. She'll be more than happy to keep you company, though.
Alright, let me get into this fight. I'll see you in a second when we're done.
Now play nice, shitbirds.
You're done!
What a team! Guess the Turks are back on duty, huh?
Wish they'd all go on vacation.
For real.
Come on. We need to find the others.
So I had a thought watching just this last time while I was editing that I didn't really realize before, and I'm not sold on this. This is brand new, still exploring. But I had kind of assumed when I first saw this that she was looking towards home. And she's looking up at the sky, she's looking off in the distance, because the conversation is, I'm worried about people back home, or whatever it is she says in a second here. And then we do the cutscene with Zack, and we come back to this, and she asks, which way do you think Midgar is? And Red spins a little circle, figures it out, and she's actually aiming a little bit too far north. So if she's looking at the map here, you can see where it's not Midgar she's looking at. She is looking almost directly at where the Temple of the Ancients is. Like, you could draw a line and you would hit it in the direction she's facing right now. Which I don't think by itself is what's significant. Red corrects her and it tilts her, a little bit further south and farther east, and that's where Midgar is. But what struck me was wondering, having gotten through the end of the story now, what if she's looking at the crack in the sky that only she can see? Because we still don't know 100% what's going on there. We know they appear in these doomed worlds that, there's not... I guess the sort of the simplest way to explain it is there's not enough there. There's not enough difference. There's not enough oomph in that world to survive. Whenever there's a difference in fate going on, it doesn't last long enough. It's not a big enough difference. Whatever you want to say about it, but that world doesn't last long enough. It's doomed. It's not going to be around much longer. Cracks in the sky. And as we saw, like in the date world, and eventually in Zack's world, at parts, people accept their fate at that point. And then we get to the very end, and that Aerith and that cloud at the end there seem to be able to see a crack in the sky. Now, I've heard different interpretations that it's actually Sephiroth screwing with Cloud's head, that it means the world is doomed and has been doomed, or now is doomed because Cloud saved Aerith and that broke the world. I mean, I've heard lots of different variations as people have played through, and that's sort of their initial thoughts, some of which I think are a brilliant way of suddenly coming to this conclusion. Whether they're right or not, it's like, oh, I hadn't thought of that before. That's really interesting. And that's why I like watching other people's playthroughs. But I don't know which of those really it could be. You could very easily make the argument, and we won't know any of this until part 3, but that's what this speculation is for. You could make the argument that this world we're in is doomed. Aerith knows about it and is doing what she can, because what else do you do? And I don't know if there's any relationship between the knowledge in the white materia and keeping a world going perhaps. I've heard that suggested. Not sure I buy it. Maybe passing the white materia that's still in that one from the date world, passing it across to our world's cloud will keep this world going longer at the sacrifice of that other world. I guess you could look at it that way in a sense. But this is not the OG sequence of events. We know this. We're not following the exact same path as the original, which means arguably anything but the intended path could be a doomed world. And we could be playing this whole thing out in this doomed world that's just lasting longer than any of the other ones, and then we get to the end and it takes the final push to make that doomed world last and become a reality. Maybe. So it could be that any of these worlds that we've seen, including this one, are all doomed. Anything other than the original timeline is doomed. If so, Aerith could be staring at that crack in the sky that only she can see at this point. I think that might be a plausible explanation. Simpler explanation, Occam's explanation, if you will, is that she just didn't know exactly where to look. She's looking somewhere in the general vicinity, and she's thinking about home, and she just doesn't know exactly where it is. Also plausible. This is Aerith. She's a sweet person. She's thinking about home. It's sad, though, thinking about that next line of hers after we come back from the Zack cutscene, where she says, okay, where do you think Midgar is? What do you think about my mom? Like, it's almost as if she's aware that that's happening. She could arguably, because, again, we never really know how much Aerith knows. Even with her drained memories and the empty materia, we don't know how much she still retains. She could be aware of Zack's world, this the Terrier stamp world, and she says, I'm wondering about my mom's doing, and she's worried about Midgar, which is the one and only place we ever see in that world, and she's worried about her mom. And Cloud's like, well, yeah, she was fine, and I comment on this in just a second. When Cloud saw her and Aerith had not seen her, and I'm not going to rehash it, but if Aerith knows that she's never gonna see her mom again, think about that when we get to the next conversation between Cloud and Aerith, and look at her face, listen to her words, and consider that she might know she's never gonna see her mom again. Also, I realized that wasn't necessarily a coherent, this is the point I'm trying to make, this is the point I just did make, here's all the pieces in between. All this stuff is stream of consciousness, so I don't know if I made the point that I intended to make, but I think I at least covered lots of ideas in between. So hopefully we'll eventually get there. Okay, here we go, back to Rufus. These are always good.
The next order of business is the Magnus Materia project.
AKA huge materia, an OG7, I believe. That
as you are
we have to assume.
The
reactors, of course, we have Corel, Gungaga, both ruined reactors, and Midgar, which has a couple of blown up reactors.
Stemmed from the arrival of visitors, unfathomably large life forms.
But we don't see, unless that's the one.
Based on available information,
we don't see the weapon at Midgar unless that's the one that we're seeing
there. The planet is in danger.
And each one carries an enormous orb of materia.
I don't see anything indicating that's the one we're in, but
from which they themselves were born. They are living enigmas, organisms dying to be understood. And finally, my dream of capturing one is within reach. Oh, what I wouldn't give to peel one's flesh back, pull it apart, and see what makes it tick. What?
Your wish, Professor, will soon be granted.
Will it, though?
We'll get what we want once that materia is ours.
This is ridiculous. Why waste time monster hunting when we're on the brink of creating the materia ourselves?
I'm aware of your efforts.
Which they did
but
create
it
it in
would behoove us
OG7,
to
so I'm
obtain
assuming
naturally
that will
occurring
be
specimens as well.
pursued in Part 3.
They would look good in the lobby.
Because I maintain that the weapons
Put them
that
in
we
the
see here are
bathroom
going to
for all I
evolve into
care.
the big
Just
ones.
leave me the carcasses. Those I'll take.
Mr. President, please. What is this really about?
Wutai is after them.
Well, talk about burying the lead. Heidegger, I'll need troops.
My finest for the Madam Director.
Mr. President,
Yes.
there's a question I never had the chance to ask your father. Perhaps you could speak on his behalf. We used Avalanche's activities as a cover to sabotage our own reactors and destroy Sector 7. Your father assured us these acts were in service to the Neo-Midgar project. However, the fact remains that we have yet to locate the promised land of legend, or even confirm if it actually exists.
Great though he was, my father was old. And in his dotage, he became rash. But while we're on the subject, there's something I've been meaning to ask all of you regarding those decisions.
Now, if I'm remembering the lore correctly, and I've mentioned this before, Rufus was at odds with his dad, and there's not really a good explanation for it as to why, that I know of at least. Again, I have not played Ever Crisis, so I don't know if it's mentioned in any way there or any of the other prequels besides Crisis Core. Could be he was neglected. Could be he, when he found out he had, we don't know who his mother is. So for all we know, Rufus was only acknowledged as his dad's son after mom raised a stink. Or, it's like we don't know the circumstances around Rufus's birth, his status as the only acknowledged child of President Shinra. We honestly don't know if he even knows his dad's name because it's never said out loud. But, there's 100% clearly daddy issues here, and they make no pains to hide it whatsoever. And so Rufus funded Avalanche. I saw something that said he started it, but I don't know about that one. But he definitely at least funded it as a way to get at his father. And apparently, as Rufus equals Saruf theory, that is all but confirmed. So he's playing that side of things with Wutai, but as I said in the previous series, we don't know whether or not his dad knew of his involvement with Wutai. And so Saruf and President Shinra cooked up this scheme of building war between Wutai and Shinra to... From Shinra's side, the explanation we got from President Shinra and Heidegger was building glorious war, funding, the industrial military complex, essentially, if you want to use that term, and basically getting everybody behind them, getting public sentiment behind Shinra, so they could basically do whatever they wanted to in service of this war with Wutai, of course. And then, yeah, we took these steps, but we're going to get the Promised Land. We're going to go do Neo-Midgar, and then everything will be fine because we'll have all this Mako. I wonder how aware Shinra is of the damage to the planet. When eco-terrorists start blowing up your reactors and making a massive nuisance of themselves, apparently they made an attempt on President Shinra's life before the game started. At what point does someone go research and say, oh, crap, they're right. We don't agree with them enough to change what we're doing because we're still making buttloads of money off this. But they are right, and we're having an impact. We've noticed that the land around Midgar is dying, etc., etc. And so I have to wonder if at some point they're like, okay, we're kind of bleeding this area dry. What we need is this promised land that has abundant Mako that will take us forever to drain. That will be good there. Let's go find that thing and set up Neo Midgar, because otherwise there's not necessarily a reason to abandon Midgar itself. I mean, it is an established base of power. You have everything you need right there. It is built in, 7/8 of it anyway. And then 6/8 after dropping a plate. But you have an established hierarchy, if you will, of people living in down below, up above. You have the support structure, you have the infrastructure, you have everything already there and done in a relatively short amount of time that city was built, to be honest. Why is Neo Midgar necessary unless they're aware that where they built it isn't going to last as long as they thought it was? And it may have been because of Avalanche saying, waking them up. They may have thought, oh, this is Mako, it's the live stream, it's going to last forever. And so they just went off willy-nilly and built all their science on it. And then Avalanche made them aware of it. And they're like, oh, well, I mean, we've come too far to stop now. Let's go bigger. Let's double down on this. I don't have a good explanation necessarily for why they needed to abandon Midgar unless they realized the resources there were going to start drying up sooner than they intended. Or they didn't even know they would and suddenly discovered that they would, rather. I don't know. But, yeah, the whole concept of needing Neo Midgar, I mean, their plan for it was all grand and green and white and futuristic and slopey and no sharp angles and stuff, and very, very futuristic and stuff. Bit utopian. Did they just not like how cold and metallic Midgar ended up? I mean, that's a bad reason to go build an entirely new city and abandon and destroy your old one, pretty much. So.
Why is it that none of you even tried to stop him?
Because they agreed with him. Ends justify the means. Power for its own sake.
Shinra must change. We must break new ground.
See you again.
Stronger, smarter, observe, adapt, expand, control.
My father built his empire with your loyal support.
Were it not for the control at the end of that, you might have some hope for
I
Rufus.
expect you all to prove that you are devoted not only to the company, but to
And then,
me.
of course, there's this. Mr. I will be a dictator. I wonder if Scarlet misses her human footstool in these meetings. That is a big damn dog. Sorry, bit of a non sequitur there. Okay, we're back to Zack. Zack scenes are always good. Let's see if... I don't think this is the one that I'm thinking of that I want to talk about. I think that's the next one.
Yeah?
Let me in.
So, as far as I know, Zack has never met Elmyra. I don't believe... I know he'd never met her in Crisis Core. But I don't believe that anywhere in between there's any reason or any possibility that he would have met her. He obviously knows who she is. Aerith, almost certain, would have told him at some point. You know, may not have seen it on screen, but he knows where she lives. He knows who she is, etc. But I don't believe they've ever met face to face. They may have in between, but I think even here he sent her a note letting her know where he is and that he's got Aerith safe and sound-ish. Yeah, I don't think there's anything to be gleaned up here.
Elmyra?
Yeah, see, they've never met.
Zack, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, introduction over. Let's go. Where's my daughter?
Where is she?
I love Elmyra. I really do.
I'm going to take her home.
Now slow down. I've been to your place. Shinra's got it staked out.
Not anymore. They have bigger things to worry about.
Like the end of the world.
And I can't leave her with you.
Of course you can. Just look at Cloud. I've been taking care of...
No, you haven't. Look at the state you've left her in. You didn't even wipe her face, for goodness sake.
Clearly he did. Her face was all sorts of grimed up, and it's very clean now.
Your note had me worried, and now that I'm here, I can see that I was right to be concerned. I brought a wheelchair for Aerith. But if Cloud's coming too, you'll just have to carry him.
She does know Cloud, though.
Think you can handle that?
Yeah, I can do that much. That's Aerith,
Yes, I know.
But you have to wonder if it crosses Zack's mind for how Elmyra knows Cloud. Because this is Zack's Cloud. This is the Cloud that he has spent the last 5 years with in a test tube tank, and then dragging him around Gaia to Benora, and then to Midgar, and then through dying but not dying, and then now into the slums, etc. So this is Zack's Cloud that he's known now for years, and Zack doesn't know who Aerith is. Excuse me, Cloud doesn't. Cloud doesn't know who Aerith is. That Cloud doesn't anyway. And so I wonder if it ever crossed Zack's mind, be like, wait a second. How do you know him? Because, I mean, we obviously know when he talks to Biggs, he's like, when did you meet Cloud exactly? Like, he puts two and two together with Biggs, but he never mentions it with Elmyra. And he does, and I mean, even when he talks to Marlene, it's like, so does Aerith like Cloud? Like, he started to put more of it all together and everything. And at some point there, I mean, Zack has to have realized there's some sort of different Cloud thing going on here. He never says it outright, though. And so we're left to kind of wonder just how much he actually puts together. Hey, Oates, how's it going?
Aerith! She okay?
Does she bloody
okay?
look okay?
Right, Aerith?
Hey, Elmyra.
Yes?
What happened to this place?
The world's ending. At least, that's what everyone's saying.
There goes the plants dying off. It's hard to pinpoint. I don't know exactly which way we're facing at sometimes. I would kind of wonder. That was a big word salad. I've kind of wondered,
Barret.
At what angle do you see the crack in the sky?
Hey, which way do you think Midgar is?
And
It would be east of here.
yes, it would. And is the crack in the sky
That way.
just across horizon to horizon? Is
I
it
wonder how my mom's
a big
doing
circle
back there.
around
She
Midgar?
seemed fine when I saw her.
I don't know.
Maybe a little worried.
She's gonna hate me for this.
Talk to her as soon as you get home. She'll understand.
Really looking forward to that conversation.
Now, I was curious about that comment there from Cloud. She seemed fine when I saw her. And it honestly took me a while when I went through. I was like, when the hell did is he talking about his vision of... Did Cloud see through Zack's eyes here? Like, what, you know, which he does later, but as of yet he hasn't. It threw me when I really thought about it, what the hell he was talking about. And I had to think back to the fact that Aerith has not seen her mom since she traded Marlene for her freedom. Traded Marlene's freedom for her captive, rather. Traded, you know, that sounded bad. But, yeah, so when they took Marlene to Elmyra, and I don't know, you know, I doubt that Aerith got to talk to Elmyra at that point. They probably just took Marlene there and said, here, we dropped her off, and we have Aerith now. You know, they probably didn't let her talk to her about it. Maybe let her leave a message or something. So, and then we went and got her, escaped from the building, hopped on the expressway, and hightailed it out of Midgar. And so Aerith has not seen her mom since she was captured by Shinra in the last game. And it took me a while to remember that, honestly. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's what she's talking about there, and not some other weird connection there of, well, when I last saw her, etc. I'm pretty sure that's all that is. If you're aware of something I'm forgetting, please let me know, but or any other reason why Cloud would make that sort of comment. But I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Over here!
Hello. Did y'all miss the giant mech?
Sorry we're late.
Miss the explosions?
You okay? Yep. Really licked up a sweat.
She definitely was asking Aerith that question,
So,
not anybody
how'd
else.
Recon go?
All
Didn't give a
clear.
damn about
No
Cloud.
nasty surprises and no materia.
We managed to catch her before she could get as far as the reactor.
Which is the whole reason we're here. So hurry it up, or those hooded guys will beat us to it.
I meant to say something earlier about the ropeways and the fact that the abandoned ones you see here. I think that is absolutely brilliant, because it's something that was always missing and always bugged me about OG7, was how in the hell people got to the gold saucer. Because the only way we ever get to the gold saucer is we go through Corel, and we hop in the little ropeway with the train, and we fly on up on the ropeway, and that seems to be the only way in and out. Which would mean that everybody going to the gold saucer went that way, and what the hell is wrong with the economy of Corel if you have tons and tons of people with money coming through? There's the disconnect there, and it always bugged me about the horrible shape that Corel was in at the massive amount of money that's flowing through the gold saucer. This one, at least, it gives you the explanation of all the helipads, and apparently the buggy docking. There is a buggy elevator. I don't think it's functional, but it's there. It exists. At least I don't think you get to use it. That's what I mean. But you can see the abandoned ropeways for going up and down this that would have serviced going from Costa del Sol up the mountain. And for all I know, they have, ski lifts here, and they do snow skiing in the wintertime. I don't know. But there was a path here going up the mountain to the reactor, over the mountain to the mining town. Like, there was a path here that used to be in use. And then technology came along, helicopters came along, the reactor exploded, so there was no reason to keep this middle ground active, and they fell out of use. It's not talked about, but they're there. And this world is so well lived in little details like that I think it's frickin' brilliant. And I enjoy getting the chance to stop and look around and see all this stuff. And, it's just the fact that it's here and you can just stop and look around, or you can ignore it for all I care. But the fact that they put that much detail and thought into it. And also, like, the port, the abandoned port in southern Gangaga, I love that spot. you know, it's great. Okay, here we go. We're already at the reactor. I forgot it was really this close.
That's it.
The Corel Reactor.
All right.
Hey, so what's the deal with all these creepy hooded guys anyway?
They're Shinra's victims.
Well, they're in good
Now, she
company.
did get an
Give 'em
explanation
that.
for them in the DLC for remake.
How do you figure? When Shinra invaded Wutai, it was pretty bad. They leveled towns, killed thousands. And when the dust settled, they forced some BS truce on us.
Yeah, cannot wait till part 3 when we go to
I thought
Wutai
both
and we can
sides
see a
wanted a
lot more of this
ceasefire.
firsthand.
The old geezers at the top did, yeah. But the rest of us were
The young
pissed.
hotheads.
They'd been running Wutai into the ground for years. It was the last straw. We were done. Everyone was ready to kick those old farts to the curb. And that's when Colonel Lodbrok's team showed up. 3 ex-soldiers ready to join the cause.
Who'd you say?
Lodbrok! His squad saved Wutai from those senile old fossils. Paved the way forward. They didn't do it alone, though. While the Colonel's crew was rallying the people, their friend Viceroy Saruf agreed to help. Then, bam! Revolution! And that is how the interim government was born.
Revolution, huh? Y'all did good.
But why the interim? Because once this war with Shinra's behind us, the whole country's gonna come together and decide what kind of government we want. Which is why we're doing everything we can to make sure the interim ends in independence. Pretty cool, right? Just gonna stand there? Let's get going!
Okay, so I was looking up the names. I forgot what they were off the top of my head. But Matt and Lucia would have been the other 2 that showed up. And when we get to Cosmo Canyon, I'll bring them up again. But if you do the Gears and Gambit's Proto-Relic quest in Cosmo Canyon, the first flashback you get before you even do the Gears and Gambits, but when you just talk to the Avalanche group that's there, they fill you in on Wedge and his fate. And Matt is... This is the point where I misremember thinking that Matt was actually in the scene. He's not. He is just referenced by one of the people on the truck, and then immediately after, Lucia is referenced by someone on the truck, as you see here. So, I mean, the names are there, but if you don't know who they are, they blow right past you and there's no reason for you to care. But, yeah, so those are the 3 that she's talking about there, is Glenn, Matt, and Lucia. And so, at some point there, presumably, and again, I need to play Ever Crisis, but the 3 of them showed up and started this process with Wutai and working with them. Somewhere in there, then after that, Rufus shot Glenn and left him for dead. I don't believe that he sat there and watched him die, is my assumption. Doesn't seem like Rufus' style anyway. But... because Rufus has to have some reason to believe that maybe Glenn is alive when he shows up in his office there in Junon. So, he obviously, if he had watched him literally die, he'd be like, okay, good, the job's done, and then walked off, that would have been it. And I don't think that Sephiroth would have appeared as Glenn at that point. But Glenn's continued presence in Wutai is still a big mystery, as I've said before, and there's not really a reason to dive in on it now, but yeah, that's a little bit of the background of what Yuffie's talking about there. You cannot see the weapon swimming down there yet. Hey, buddy.
So, like, all that stuff down there is Mako?
Yeah, see, again, as I said earlier...
It's gotta be hiding some ginormous materia!
There's Mako. It's materia. Therefore,
I'm
power.
gonna be so powerful, it's scary.
Using how to use the power that's there, the Mako that's there, how to use the materia that is no doubt present. That's not her concern. It's just owning it is all she needs. All right, so this is the purple fringed one. So this is not the one that Sephiroth injures.
What the hell was that thing?
A weapon.
Huh?
Tutelary creatures, said only to appear when the planet is in grave danger. Hojo has sought them for years.
Did you see what was inside it? That had to have been the biggest freaking materia ever! Just gotta figure out how to catch that overgrown fish.
That guardian of the planet?
Whatever. I'm not about to let a materia that beautiful get away. And just so we're clear, it's mine. I called it.
And I know materia changes size based on, you know, plot reasons. Because it's this big when you hold it, and then when you need to slot it into your fighter's glove, is this big.
I'll be back for you soon.
This big. You know, I mean, Tifa has several of them on a glove, so it can't be that heavy or large. And they slot into all the weapons, etc. So all these handheld things go and shrink down. I don't think that big thing can shrink down that small.
We were, weren't we?
Yeah.
Now, I still think here that Barret's
not the only problem.
Sort of looking to justify the damage they did.
Still out there.
He is.
I'm trying to remember.
Stop him.
I don't think did we see? I mean, we saw obviously. Did they see that Shinra caused the explosions in Remake and made them worse? I know Jessie died thinking that it was her fault. So I don't think that they found out the truth. I could be remembering that wrong. And it would have been like in the Airbuster fight, I think, when they were confronting Heidegger. If they were, I mean, obviously they know that they lost control of the explosion. But I don't know I don't remember honestly if they found out that Heidegger caused the other one, really, because they set the bomb. So there's not really a reason for them not to. I don't know. I'll correct myself if I'm misremembering that. But in general, I still kind of, I mean, Barret is trying to justify the damage that they caused. Say, look, I mean, yeah, we were right. Yeah, we were right to cause the problem, and we were right to be extreme and take the steps we did. Right? We were right. And he does it again later, and Kate Sith calls him on it a little bit, and then later on really calls him on it. And Kate called him on it in OG as well. And I like the fact that they brought that out, and I think it's a good character beat between the two of them especially. But yeah. All right, I think it's still swimming around down there, isn't it? I saw it for a second during the cutscene. Okay, I guess he went too deep now. All right, fine. I am curious where, because in OG7, the huge materia one of them came from here, from the reactor. I don't know that they're going to get it out of that. Unless they get something up and running in the meantime here. If they do enough repairs, or they just take the fact that there's this much Mako pooled here, and all they have to do is gather it, and then they can try and process it. That could be a route they go. But, yeah. Because they look for huge materia in Gingaga and don't find it in their reactor. And so one of them comes from the still intact reactor that's here. In OG, it was damaged, but it didn't frickin' explode and leave a giant hole in the ground like this one did. So there is definitely a difference in what happened at the reactor between this story and OG7. Alright, here we go. Another one of my favorite areas, just because it's so freaking huge and involved, and it's a crossroads of multiple paths, and it's all freaking here from the get-go.
Can't cross till we lower it.
The water where you sail the tiny Bronco after you first crash is right there. You don't even think about it.
What?
That's what you're seeing.
You know this area, don't you?
Control room's up there, at the top of the cliff.
There's some massive gears for what reason?
Through the mine. Won't be a walk in the park, though. Place has been abandoned for years.
As a plot device, fine, this makes sense. As actually, what the hell?
Just wait a minute.
We can't go any further. I guess we need to hop in.
Hey. Cloud.
But no, we don't worry about Cloud.
Come on.
We don't talk about Cloud, oh no, no, no. We don't talk about Cloud, oh.
Perhaps the Mako got to him. Regardless, he's clearly tired.
Cloud could rest here while a couple of us go and lower the bridge, yeah?
Yeah.
Works for me.
When that thing rings, you'll know we're done. And you, don't move till you're good and ready.
Alright, put on your mining helmets and follow me.
Makes sense to follow Yuffie and not the, you know, miner. Follow the miner, not the miner. Okay. I honestly don't think there's really anything to discuss the entire mine. So, I don't know. We'll meet whenever something interesting happens. See you in a bit. Okay, so we just rescued Cloud Jr. What the hell? Never a bad idea to show him around when he shows up. It's ridiculous, but it's cute. I like it.
Or not?
And, of course, the fact that he latches onto Barret.
What the?
Echoes of Zaz from FF13.
Someone has a fan.
No fair.
Got enough hangers on already, but fine.
Hey, check out its head. Does it remind you of anyone?
And this
Cloud,
is, of
only
course,
cute.
That settles it. I hereby dub thee Cloud Jr.
Hey, we could take that minecart down. Save ourselves a hike. Not the smoothest ride, but it sure is fast. Me and Di
poor
used
Yuffie
to...
tummy. I think that's the first time Dine's name is mentioned.
Forget it. Let's just lower the bridge and get back to the others.
And again, slow walking that reveal let you know he has some sort of history. Now he's like, yeah, me and Dine used to... Oh. And so, I mean, if you didn't know the story, they do a brilliant job of just feeding you just enough to keep it going. Let's see. Hey, Cloud Jr., how's it going, buddy? I am kind of curious how the mama bird that you see later laid the nest right there on the top of this console without, you know, crushing it. And setting up this tiny, delicate little nest that's this big and just barely big enough for 3 little chicks. I'm curious about the mechanics of that.
They did it.
Nice.
What if it wasn't them?
Right.
What if it was
Now that the
Sheiran?
bridge is good to go, let's touch base with the others.
Roger.
Like, I think they can see that the bridge is down now. You don't really need to call them and say, hey, the bridge is down.
Hello, hello. This is Special Agent Yuffie. Can you read me, Commander Cloud? How you doing? Feeling better?
I'm good.
We'll take a cart back down. You three follow the tracks till you hit the bridge into town. Figure we link up there before heading in. You copy?
Copy.
Oh, and set our route while you're at it, will you? The gentler the ride, the better. Don't want anyone losing their lunch.
I'm begging you, Cloud, please.
I wouldn't mind some excitement, but what you gonna do?
I feel bad for the people who, on their, they choose to go the Yuffie route because then they miss the jump. And, like, I don't know why you would want to do that route. And my relationship with Yuffie is not so important that I want to miss the giant jump. So, anyway, again, there's not really anything between here and there. So I really think the bridge is the next bit. So I'll see you there in just a second. Okay, we're at the bridge.
Your homecoming?
And man, they have this. Everything about this is just heartbreaking because Barret is so awesome. Like I love Barret. His dad energy is just, I vibe with that a lot because I got 2 kids and like his trial hit me the hardest. Just the thought of losing my wife, for instance, just oh my god.
Look who it is.
And
the great Sir Wallace,
seeing him
with his presence
hurt, it's not okay.
Surprised you had the balls to come back, but we're so glad you did.
But I do also love he and Yuffie have been, or Yuffie's been poking at him on the way up here. I was talking over most of it on the way up the mountain. But she's like, "Oh, well, do I need permission to do this? Do I need permission to do that?" She's just being a little kid.
What?
And here she is now defending him. Whatever. And again, it's just the relationships in the party are great. And now as soon as we get in, out comes the shield, the mask, the glasses, hide the emotions.
Word to the wise, stay far away from that asshole.
Yeah, that ain't happening, lady.
Now where'd our buddies in black get to?
So, the Corel Reactor was completed in like May of '03, which is actually, let's see, that's what Nibelheim incident was in '02 in October, so it's about a little over half a year after the Nibelheim incident. And shortly after it's completed is the accident, and Shinra raises Corel Village, and Gold Saucer gets built on its remains, etc. The difference in reactions there between losing the Corel Reactor, let's cover it up, and let's say it was the work of terrorists, etc., rather than just admit the accident, versus the next year in '04 was the Gungaga Reactor incident, and they put up a monument and oops, our bad, let's, and I mean they accepted some form of culpability for that one, it looks like, and they made some form of amends, not a whole lot, but more than they did with Corel. At least they didn't go in and nuke frickin' Gungaga, or burn it to the ground. They didn't nuke Corel. But yeah, so the difference between those two that are only a year apart, and it makes me wonder, behind the scenes, if the conversation in Shinra was, okay, we can't, clearly there's something wrong with our design, we can't just keep burning down every town and say, oops, it was something else, someone's going to catch on, let's own this one, and what can we do better with the next one? And, so I mean, so there's not that much difference in time between the two, and both of them would have been Gungaga would have already been active for a while, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember seeing the Gungaga reactor going active on the timeline as a major enough event to warrant mention. But yeah, I had wondered when I first went through and saw the difference if the timing had been an issue, if maybe Cissnei being there had made a difference, but Zack and Cloud didn't escape until '06. So 2 years after the reactor. I don't remember the reactor being a thing in Crisis Core. So the reactor is mentioned. In fact, that's the location when you get to Gungaga. Zack recognizes, hey, it's my hometown, and like the very next screen is at the ruined reactor. I think the reason it didn't stick in my head is because the fact that it's the ruined reactor isn't mentioned. Because as far as we can tell, I mean, the reactor went up after Zack was already, you know, captured and incapacitated in Shinra Manor in Nibelheim. And so it should have been a shock to him to see, hey, wait a second, there's a destroyed frickin' reactor here. But it's not mentioned, and I assume it just wasn't a thing they felt they needed to bring up. You know, I don't know if they'd even worked out the timeline of when it was ruined at that point. Yeah, I don't know when that decision was made to make that a thing and then when it happened. But yeah, so you have a little chat with Cissnei outside or on the outskirts of Gungaga. He asks her to look after his parents, says, oh, they'll probably ask you to join the family. And she says, meh, they already did. So, which I was kind of struck with, like, Zack and Cissnei had a slightly flirtatious, but definitely friendly relationship. And, you know, Cissnei obviously never stood a chance once Aerith came into the scene and grabbed Zack's heart. But, you know, they very easily could have been really good friends, and they have a friendship. It's just not given enough time to really develop beyond, you know, just the few conversations you see them have in the game. And so I really appreciate what they do with Cissnei in this story, giving her some screen time for one, but also just sort of her role in keeping an eye on Gungaga since Zack can't be there. And in a later chapter when we'll come back and review, because there's a couple of quests that involve Cissnei, so we'll sort of talk about them a little bit later on. But yeah, so I think that was just really weird in hindsight that the reactor is not mentioned at all in Crisis Core, even though it happened after Zack had left home, and last he heard, it was still intact. Nibelheim captured, few years, you know, and then years later, now comes back to Gungaga, nothing. So, I mean, when you come to Gungaga in OG, the reactor's really all you see is the burned out reactor on the map. You walk in, you can walk right past it if you don't take the right path, and then there's the Gungaga village, which is like 4 or 5 huts maybe. So it got an upgrade for this game. But yeah, and the Gungaga reactor didn't produce big enough materia for Scarlet with the huge materia. And you see, if you go there, you get the Titan summon, but also, like, you see Scarlet there, and she's like, nope, this is not it. We need huge materia. This is nothing. So I wonder if, since it's basically in the same state as the Corel Reactor, if it will be the source of one of the huge materias, the artificial ones that Scarlet wants to create in Part 3. I guess we'll find out.
Hey, guys. You mind if I pop in for a minute? There's someone I want to see.
I thought this was a really good inclusion.
When I got hurt back in Nibelheim, they brought me to this clinic.
And again, the things to note here is that number one, Cloud only draws his sword on Sephiroth's when there is a black-robed person actually there. The ones that are only in his head, he never seems to draw his sword on. with very rare exception, I think. That you have to really hunt for those. And I think we're going to see a parallel here. We may see something similar when we get to Mideel in Part 3. I assume we'll have... Because everyone who played OG, I think, probably got the same impression I did, or... Not everyone, but you know what I mean. That when they saw trailers that included this area, I had assumed that this was the clinic in Mideel and that we'd get to go there. Because obviously this clinic wasn't a thing in OG.
What's going on? Barret and Wallace.
Dr. Sheiran.
As I live and breathe.
It's been a while.
Certainly has. That's one frightening looking appendage you got there. But hey, at least you still seem to have your health.
Yeah, and you too.
Oh, I'm feeling the miles, but the work keeps me trucking. I tell you what, though.
Do you remember me?
Well, of course I do, Tifa. It hasn't been that long. You heal up all right?
I did, yeah. I just wanted to drop by and say thank you. If it wasn't for you, I doubt I'd be standing here today.
Don't thank me. Thank Lady Luck. And Shinra for that helicopter.
I'm sorry, Shinra?
I know you might find it hard to believe, but not all the apples in that bunch are rotten. But seriously, you're living proof of the good in people.
So Zangan rescued Tifa from the reactor, according to the original lore, and we can assume it's similar here until we hear otherwise. Zangan went in, found Tifa, rescued her from the reactor, and before he could go back, Shinra got there and pulled Cloud and Zack. And so I believe he got her... I don't know how he got her from there to here. I assume he made a deal with someone or talked to someone or beat up someone, I don't know, to arrange for the helicopter to get her here. If I remember correctly, in Traces of Two Path, she mentions that she ended up, like, for some reason, the first place he got her wasn't enough, and... or maybe it was just for the rehab part there. I think there was an offer to take her to Shinra Tower, and Zangan said, yeah, no. And so she ended up in Midgar in the slums at a doctor there, and I think that was sort of for her rehab and for maybe some finalized treatments and stuff. And so my assumption then is that she started here, because I think when she went to Midgar, they had changed her. She had a fake ID at that point that listed her hometown as Corel instead of Nibelheim, and so that's so I assume that's why this is still here, in that he helped her and she was brought here, got the initial life-saving care she needed, and then Zangan moved on with her for whatever reason and got her to Midgar.
Don't ever forget that. It'd be a pity to let their kindness
But I'm
go
curious
to
about
waste.
this. Mention the focus they give on. It was Shinra and the helicopter that did it as well. Unless they just want to bring home this point that not everybody in Shinra is evil.
Oh, right. Well, I gotcha. Mind helping me out? Need to draw that gentleman's blood. You think you can hold him still for me?
Number 36.
At first, I thought it was just Mako poisoning. It is
Yeah,
until I ran some tests. The results were...
The Calm Innkeeper has a much lower number. I think his is single digits, if I remember right.
A substance turned up. One I've never seen before. Not sure what to make of it yet, but it did remind me of one I have seen. Your eyes. Soldier, right?
Important for a lot of points here.
It's not a job, son. Once a soldier, always a soldier.
Which I absolutely love that line. because ever since the second we met him, Cloud's I'm ex-soldier, ex-soldier, ex-soldier. And of course, he was never actually even a soldier. But I love that line. It's just, it's not a job, son. When Elmyra met Cloud, it was, you boys made a trade. For power, you get instead of a normal life, etc. So I mean, it was, you took this on. Things were done to you. You got physical upgrades and enhancements and things done to you that make it so that you're not normal anymore. And you made that choice. You made that trade away from a normal life. And it's that idea here is revisited with Sheiran. And, it's not just, ooh, you signed up for the military, your body belongs to the government for X number of years until you're out. You're a soldier for life at that point, because they can't undo the changes, really. And, I mean, we know that they were Mako infused, and then the next level beyond that, and I don't know how many, if it's all soldiers that got the Genova cells implanted, or if that was only at a certain point they started doing that. I don't remember, honestly, off the top of my head. But obviously at some point the G-type soldiers that came from with Jillian, I think her name was, the G-type soldiers degrade, and Genesis went through that whole plot line with degradation in Crisis Core. The S-type soldiers like Sephiroth, like Cloud now, do not degrade. And that will keep coming up as we go through this discussion. And Cloud's refusal here, I think, is interesting. I think it stems from his subconscious. I think half of it is his subconscious knowing he's not a normal soldier, and then the other half knowing, being resistant to it because of the Sephiroth influence and etc. in him. I don't think it's just as simple as him, well, I don't want you messing with my blood, or etc. At some subconscious level, Cloud knows that the results would be different, and he doesn't want that getting out. I don't know if he knows why or how, but I think at some subconscious point, Cloud knows, and whatever it is that's influencing him subconsciously was not going to let him agree to this. So I've mentioned in previous commentary sections, either in this story spoiler one, and I think at least once in my main playthrough, S and G type soldiers. And if you never played Crisis Core, you may not know what that means. What's the difference? It was not a thing in OG 7. It really only came up for Crisis Core, and then in Remake, during one of the board meetings, Hojo mentioned when he wanted to breed Aerith to make another ancient just in case something happened to her. Well, we'll have to try SNG type soldiers, which, again, if you hadn't played Crisis Core, you wouldn't know what he was talking about. So there were two main threads of study in the soldier program, and they were G-type soldiers, which was run by Hollander, who was sort of the other Hojo in Shinra research. They're sort of on equal footing at some point there. And that was named after Jillian Hewley, I think was the last name, which was Angeal's birth mother. And the idea was that they injected her with Genova cells, and it was sort of a mixture of human and Genova DNA. If I remember correctly, I could be getting some of this wrong because it's complicated as hell and I don't always remember all the details. But it was a mixture of human and Genova DNA that was injected into people, and it was her cells, I believe, that were used, and that's where Genesis came from. And that's where the majority of the soldiers really came from, were a part of that program. when you first play Crisis Core, you think that the G is going to stand for Genesis, but it's actually Jillian. Angeal is slightly different because he actually got the injection of Genova cells directly from the source because Jillian was pregnant with him. So it wasn't the same way of getting the mixture as it was with everybody else. Obviously, he still got a mixture of human and Genova because he was being born in his from Jillian, but it wasn't in the same ways. The G-type soldiers have the ability to copy traits and characteristics, take on appearances, that sort of thing, which was an inherited ability from Genova, but they also suffer from degradation. S-type soldiers are different. They get straight up shots of Genova DNA, no human mixture, none. It's just a straight shot of Genova. And so there were several S-type soldiers that you knew in Crisis Core, even though you didn't know that's what they were. Zack's buddy Kunzel, who you actually hear mentioned in Remake, when you first break into the building and you get right outside the hologram after you've done the Mayor's the Best quest. You see the the troopers walking up the stairs, and the guy goes, Cloud? Hey, I'm gonna go find Kunzel. Kunzel was Zack's friend and also knew Cloud because Zack and Cloud were friends, and they were all sort of in that same little posse together for a while there. And there were a couple other ones like Luke Sierra or something like that. Some of the other soldiers that you meet over the course of Crisis Core are S-types because they didn't go off with Genesis and they weren't part of this whole copied thing. I want to say probably most of the soldiers that stay with Shinra at that point in the storyline are probably S-types. I have no way of verifying that, but that's sort of the indication that I got from playing. The Sephiroth, of course, is the ultimate of the S-types. We see the S-cells, so we'll go over this again a little bit when we get down to underneath Shinra Manor in a couple of chapters. But Cloud is not exactly an S-type, but he's not exactly not an S-type. So Zack is an S-type, and when Hojo is experimenting on them under Shinra Manor, I believe what happens is that he is injecting them with Sephiroth's cells to try and create Sephiroth clones, a very specific way of creating these a new version of the experiment. It doesn't work on Zack because he already has Genova cells, because he's an S-type soldier. It doesn't work right away on Cloud in the same way that it did with everybody else. Most of all the other clones that received the S cells, the actual Sephiroth cells, to create Sephiroth clones, those are more of the, I think those are the ones that were supposed to be, are these black-robed ones. But I think it's the black robes that specifically get the numbered tattoos, as opposed to the ones where we see that don't have the numbered tattoos. And so we see them, we'll see the difference there when we get to Nibelheim. And then Cloud was just sort of something a little bit different all around. Anyway, that's the two different types of soldiers, and all of them receive Mako infusion, and that's what everybody knows about. So we say, oh, well, you've got the Mako infused eyes. Those are the traits that are identifiable, that are known outside of Shinra. Then what is not known is the fact that they also got the Genova cells injected in them. I'm not sure what Roche's status would be, because Roche is a third-class soldier, and then he gets the Genova cells directly from Hojo, and then starts transforming into more closer to Sephiroth. So I think technically Roche might be an S-type and the Sephiroth clone vein of study. I'm not sure. I mean, he may have been something special, because obviously Hojo's doing something extra to him beyond what he would have gotten just as a third-class soldier. But anyway, even as far back as Remake, they've been discussing this idea of the degradation. President Shinra, right before the Airbuster fight, flat out says, once a soldier, always a soldier, with a short lifespan. All soldiers know they suffer the degradation. It's not official, but they all know. And you see people now outside of Soldier also putting this information together, like Doc Sheiran, and they're coming to the conclusion that Shinra itself already knows, and that some of them, the symptoms are like Mako poisoning, but in the case of actual G-type soldiers, it's more than that. It is actual degradation, not just Mako poisoning. And then in S-type soldiers, it is actual the Sephiroth clones. But we'll get to that when we get to Nibelheim.
Huh. Spare a drop?
No.
I mean, that is instantaneous.
I ask because I suspect there's soldiers suffering from cellular degradation. Just a theory for now, and one I can't prove, not without a lot more testing.
You see many of these guys?
Which they've brought up that's who these people are.
Some. I do what I can for the injured
This is not the first time this idea has come up.
Stumble onto the saucer.
Why would they go there?
Shit. Don't ask me. I think it's odd too.
But I do really like the addition of Doc Sheiran here.
Ain't that something? The girl I saved coming back here with Barret of all people. I'm sure there's some kind of cosmic significance to that, but hell if I know what it is. Promise me you'll take it easy out there. Okay, Tifa? If you get hurt, you know where to find me.
Alright. Now I think we're clear to go.
So, Doc mentioned the gold saucer, right? As in the amusement park, where every day is a holiday? We're going, right? I mean, we have to.
Yuffie, this isn't a vacation.
Yeah. Weird mumbling guys, got it. Oh man, this is gonna be so much fun!
Town's got a ropeway that'll take us straight there. It's not far. If we're doing this, let's just
Which
do
again
it.
was originally the only way to get to the saucer that I remember ever seeing there. So, I mean, obviously a much more limited saucer in OG7 than what we get now. So, I like that it's there, and now there's actually a reason for it, that this was essentially the servants, or the workers, not the servants, the workers' entrance. And so we come in through the bottom and work our way out and then walk in. So it's the service entrance, this is not how guests get there. Certainly not anymore, if it ever was.
Not a day goes by I don't think of my husband.
Alright, let's get into the saucer, and I think I have to call it a night after that. Beer. Lots of beer. That's... Yeah, everything's worn down and abandoned here.
And let's get a move on.
Yep. Alright, set up.
This'll take us all the way to the saucer.
Oh, now we get to get through
Hey,
Barret's story
you can't
here.
let those assholes talk to you like that. We should go back and beat them up or something. Practically the whole damn town came out to crap on him. Someone tell me why I'm the only one who's pissed here.
I told you. I can take it.
Think you could at least tell us what it was all about? They were talking like you sold them out for money, but I know that isn't true. That's not you. So how'd they get it so wrong?
Where the hell is it?
I think I really appreciate about his story here is that
About Marlene?
they didn't get it wrong. Barret is legitimately guilty about all this because he really did push the reactor. He really did shill for Shinra, whatever you want to call it. He made a mistake, and he really did this thing that it's not his fault the reactor blew up. It's not his fault that Shinra went frickin' evil on him. But
sold them all down the river.
He really did push and helped get it through.
Took away their future.
And so, yeah, he's the scapegoat. He's the focal point for all their anger. So it's not fair that they blame it on him. But he's not
happy.
It's not a misunderstanding necessarily.
Dirt, but none of that mattered. We had friends and family, and that was enough. Till we heard about the miracle of Mako and all we'd been missing out on. And then we just had to have a taste.
So now only Dine is opposed.
Damn right I am. We can't just abandon the mines. Not after our fathers and grandfathers risked their lives to maintain them.
I hear you, Dine. I do. But nobody sees any future in coal. So I ask you.
But at the same time, I mean, you know, technology changes, it evolves. Coal mines, not exactly the safest. Coal mining is not exactly the safest job.
If I may, sir. Once the reactor is complete, a portion of the revenue will go to the town. Your community will be preserved.
If Mako had been as safe as it was
say.
presented to be, and if Shinra had not gone, you know,
This is your chance to give your daughter
uber evil on them to cover up the accident.
You think I haven't
If it had just been an accident, for instance,
Come on.
how
Are we
different
gonna
would it
let
have been?
Some city slickers tell us our coal is worthless? We gonna let them tell us we're worthless?
It would seem we've reached an impasse. In which case, any further discussion would be a waste of breath. So, Mr. Mayor, shall we put it to a vote?
I mean, unless something requires unanimity, I think if Dine's the only holdout.
Well then, all in favor?
Two years later, the reactor was finished, and the trial run went off without a hitch. Everyone was ecstatic.
So that would have been happened in
dawn of a
'01
new era.
ish.
Then one day, the reactor exploded. Y'all saw the aftermath. And then, Shinra came rolling into town.
Interesting. That was the reactor. That conversation was being had the same year that Avalanche was founded
It was,
in
wasn't
Cosmo Canyon.
Yeah.
it? Bitch.
I don't get it. Why burn the whole town?
To craft a story that it was all the work of a local insurgent group.
So Avalanche was founded in time 2 years then before.
Right through their teeth.
So that was probably part of the, you know, they probably made that link there and said, oh, it was local insurgents. Probably blamed it on Avalanche indirectly.
There's a whole lot of blood on my hands, too. I pushed for the reactor. I put us on the path that brought us here.
Barret.
The saucer's waiting.
So yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not fair that they blame Barret and Barret alone for everything that happened. But it's not just a case of he was innocent or he didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, he did push for it. He was, and he knows that he was responsible, but obviously not that responsible.
I don't want your sympathy or your pity. You can keep all of that nonsense. I did what I did.
I hope we get a good version of them coming around.
We're about to rock up to
Because
the
in OG7, he saves the town, hopefully, from the train when you're after the huge materia. And they kind of say, well, yeah, maybe you're not such a jerk. Maybe you're okay, Barret. And the town kind of comes around on him. And is okay.
Wanna have a look?
I hope we get a
Coming up
good
over there.
version of that in part 3, and that... I can't think of the right word. But that, you know, Barret comes out a little bit happier.
We're all on the same page.
In a better place as a result.